Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be exploring the question, what is the purpose of coaching? And that is a simple and a very complex question, but it's one that has come up in a couple of different meetings that Zoe and I have been involved in this week. And we thought it warranted giving it a bit of time to explore with you today, and perhaps it will stimulate some of your own reflections, either around what brought you into coaching in the first place? What was the purpose behind it? When you think about coaching as a profession, what do you think is the purpose collectively of coaches as a profession? And of course, from a coachee's perspective, what they see as the purpose of coaching.
And I think this question is multi-layered in that there is an easy answer. What's the purpose of coaching? Well, it's to better yourself, increase morale in organizations. It's to achieve your goals. It's all of those things. And those are answers that I think are quite easily available. But I think the multi-layers are, as you described there, when you look at this from a systemic lens and you start to question, well, why? Why go to the effort of training to be a coach? Why go to the effort of continually developing yourself to be the best that you can be? Is it just about the impact on one person, or is there a greater contribution that if we think of coaches as a team and a collective, that we are actually making a bigger contribution to something? And what is that something? So there are layers, I think, that I can see from when I was a beginner coach and I was mainly in contact with that. I like helping people. Whereas where I sit now, it's much more in the existential space of like questioning, okay, so what are we all contributing to? And not just what are we contributing to, but what could we contribute to as a collective of coaches? Yeah.
I feel as though hearing this question coming up in different places feels a little bit like the profession is having a little bit of an identity crisis, or perhaps the start of a bit of an identity crisis. And why is that relevant and why is that happening? I think that it's relevant because the different coaching bodies, how do you know if you are a good coach or not? So there are a range of different competency models, all very similar, but with their own flavors to it. And they will be based off the coaching body's definition of what coaching is and what the purpose of coaching is. And we're seeing and hearing a lot more questions being asked around, directive versus undirective. What about when it comes to climate change and those issues coming up in a coaching scenario? What is your role as a coach? What do you see as your individual purpose in life, and then your purpose as a coach? There is a lot more challenge, I think, or challenging beginning to happen of some of the very foundations of what coaching is and therefore the purpose of it.
And it's to be expected, isn't it? Like the industry is relatively new in terms of time, and existence. And where we are, or where coaching finds itself today, is in a world that looks very different to perhaps what it was, even just 50 years ago. So I think it's natural. As I think I like the word like identity crisis, like it's an evolution, it's what's the 2.0, and we have pressures from artificial intelligence, that do and will influence the coaching space, as you've described there. There's climate change. The program that this question came up on was racial consciousness training, which we were delving into. And I think that, with just an a building block of everybody wanting to make a difference, the question is a natural question, like, what difference? What difference do we want to make through coaching? What is our purpose? And is it a shared purpose, or is it each individual's purpose that they're off to pursue? Like with all questions, there are more there are more questions than there are answers, I think.
For me, I think I've always felt that one of the key purposes of coaching is conflict resolution. So conflict, that internal conflict that we all experience when different parts of us are in conflict with one another, and we don't feel that we are in good company in ourselves, when we are on our own, or that coaching helps people to communicate, to identify and communicate their needs and to get their needs met, and to help them understand other people's perspectives of the world and find that way. And so for me, the purpose of coaching is very much about connection as well, connecting to self and, understanding who we are, and also helping us to connect with others. Because for me, life is about connection, and kind of, if it's not, I don't know what it is about. So whilst that may not be in, a paragraph definition or a sentence definition, for me, the purpose of coaching is more of a, it's an essence, it's a sense, and it's a somatic. I think when people talk about purpose and they're exploring, I was thinking earlier about the 5 whys and how that can help us to sometimes, as a very simple way to get to the heart of what really matters to us. And how do you know when you're there? Or even with a beliefs activity, sometimes how does the client know, or when they've really made contact with the truth of that for them? And usually I would say you see it in the body, or they feel it in the body, or you experience that shift between you. What about you, Zoe? What comes up for you when you think about the purpose of coaching?
I mean, these aren't words I would have used even a few years ago, but as you were talking then, what came into my mind was ultimately coaching is about love. And what I mean by that is it's about self-love. It's about, respecting yourself so much that you choose to invest in your dreams and your aspirations and the things that you want from life and relationships. So on a coachee perspective, I think from a place of an organization investment, it's about, wanting your employees to have a in the way that you threw courage, conflict in my mind resolved tension of love and extending compassion. Answer to what is the purpose of coaching. I think for me personally, when I zone out and I look at coaching from a helicopter view, it blows my mind, the ripple effect of coaching. So you can be sat in a room with your coachee and you can be supporting them on their goals. And in doing so, obviously what you're doing is overcoming barriers and shifts in their mindset, but you're also helping them to identify their strengths and their resources. And we know that coaching is a healing space for people to explore the different challenges they want to overcome. And so then they walk out of that room and they go to their team and they pass on some of that wisdom, or they come back and they're a caregiver in some form, whether they're a parent or an auntie or a friend. They're passing the joy that they have changed, and in the way that they pass that on, another person passes on. So that the ripple effect of coaching, like I said, it blows my mind. And I think when you sit and think about what's the purpose of coaching, that for me is about, it's not just about personal growth and however you define that, but it's the impact that one person's personal growth can have on, well, I guess society as a whole.
I think it's generational, isn't it? You passing that down, and I can't remember the phrase, but making decisions now that are going to serve 7 generations, forwards. And I was glad that you said healing, because, well, glad, but I was thinking of healing, and I was thinking how far we've come on that in, where we might have whispered it to each other in the past when we were talking about coaching, like, we think it's about healing. Yeah, but it's not okay to say that, because that would be therapy side. And then, I hear discussions around coaching is really like bursting up in places that it hasn't burst up before, and lots of people or industries, I think, are trying to claim coaching, to themselves and in their own way. And that more therapeutic approach to coaching is really, our passion. It's the emotional part of it, because we see that in many ways that healing bit is the purpose of coaching to support people with emotional regulation.
Well, we say, don't we, that all coaching is about emotions. Like, if you've done our emotions coaching practitioner training, or you're thinking of doing it, like, that is our lead in. Because if you're not coaching somebody on their emotions, like, what is it that you're coaching? It sits behind everything. You're looking for a new job. That's because you're feeling dissatisfied in some way or excited about the future. So, emotion sits in everything. And I think that thing around healing, for anybody that's listening and thinking, really, like, that's not what I want to do. And it's like, let's just look at it from a place of, to be in relationship with someone who wholly accepts you as you are, as you arrive, with all the experiences that you might have had that day. So you might arrive with lots of frustration at your line manager that is, I don't know, flipping your budget again, to be welcomed in. Now, you may not have had experiences before where you are able to sit in an adult to adult relationship and really explore all the different avenues without judgment and without objection in any way. That's healing. It doesn't have to be that you're delving into somebody's past and bringing up, deep traumas. Like, yes, there is healing for that, of course, but that's not the healing that we're talking about in coaching. It is a space which is therapeutical by nature of being able to be welcomed as your whole self into a coaching relationship. And when it's met with the skills and the capacity to be able to support somebody with the whole range of their emotions, and even to extend their emotional awareness and literacy, feeling like that's a growth, that's being able to. So yeah, coaching for us has always been healing. And I think as we step into more of the work around emotions, we see that more and more.
I think on emotions, I was just imagining, like, if we had, one of our cohorts, in a room together or a virtual room together, and we asked them, what is the purpose of coaching? And let's say there was a timer ticking, and you just had to say the first thing that came into your mind, what is the purpose of coaching? And for it to come out, the whole range and myriad of different answers that would come out. And I was thinking, like, the first thing I might say that we haven't said already is to reduce loneliness. And loneliness, of course, is, that's an emotion, that's feeling, that is, I think, a deep fear that most human beings have, is of being on their own. And I think that lies underneath a lot of coaching too. So if I was to quickly come to you, Zoe, and say, so, like, stream of consciousness, what is the purpose of coaching? What's the next thing that you would share?
Well, interestingly, and this is not a quick fire answer, but if you'd asked me when I first did my coaching training, I would have come up with much more tangible things like achieving results. Just whatever was the tangible goal that I was on, it would have been very much about that. Whereas through experience, obviously, what I've learned is the results come as a result of the work that you do, and the work that you do is ultimately the purpose work. So I think if you asked me in a stream of consciousness in a quick fire round, I think I would say, this isn't very quick, is it? Because I'm now like noodling the thought.
It's the slowest answer ever,
isn't it? I'm dragging it out for the sake of the podcast. I think I would say I think I'd go back to what you were saying about connection. Connection to what is it that I want from this life? What is it that I want right now? What is it that I want for myself and for others? That rings a bell for me.
I think some other words that just pop into my mind, if I don't try and filter it are obvious things. First of all, like growth, learning, direction. I think a lot of people come to coaching for direction. We know that a lot of people come to coaching to make decisions. And there's a part of me that really wants to shout out loud that, you know, the purpose of coaching is it's like life-saving. Like it resources you with skills and knowledge about yourself and your resilience. Like resilience is a big part, I think, of what people are able to get when from the experience of coaching is they learn, you know, about themselves and how they can bounce back and how they can bounce forwards and to release potential and to discover their potential and to realize it. And yeah, I think, you know, well, what else would you share? What else is coming up for you? What are the things you wouldn't normally say, but you could put on the table?
Well, two further words that came to me when you were talking was clarity and confidence. I think those are often two things that coachees have a purpose for when coming to coaching. And then clarity is about self-trust. And I think trust is a purpose in coaching, like trust guidance. And we've often talked, haven't we, about waking up the inner coach. I love that can be a purpose of coaching, is to ignite your inner coach. And as you said, like, it's not really just about the there and then of getting the answers and achieving that one goal in your life at that moment in time. It's about learning all of the resources and the ways of thinking and the ways to challenge yourself that you could achieve any goal you wanted to apply in your life. And obviously, you know, that's not real for everybody, but, you know, having that energy and that empowerment to think, okay, this is something I can figure out. I've done this before. I've been in a hard place before. I know how I can dig deep and use my mind to support me in overcoming this latest challenge, rather than hitting roadblocks and needing to come to coaching each time you're experiencing a challenge.
I would also throw some other things onto the table to be considered, that perhaps the purpose of coaching is to support people in legacy making. I would also throw onto the table that perhaps coaching is about enabling people to connect their conscious and their unconscious mind, or, you know, to be able to connect with their intuition or even their spirituality and, you know, their connection to that. So, you know, I'm trying to think about it through the different layers of, yeah, what's the purpose of coaching in a session? What's the purpose of a coaching program? What is the purpose of coaching to organizations? What is the purpose of coaching for society as a profession, you know, for the future? So, you know, I'd encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast, to really reflect as deeply as you can, you know, go as deep as you can into what might be and what could be the purpose of coaching, and how might it be helpful to me if I allow myself and liberate myself to be able to really consider maybe some radical alternatives to what you might traditionally consider to be the purpose of coaching.
Absolutely. And I think for anybody listening who wants to just start to tap into that deeper reflective self, that's what we're talking about. Question like this can take you down all sorts of layers. And on the 2nd of October, which world leaders in emotions and coaching joining us to talk about not just the importance of emotions and coaching, but lots of different angles to start to help you to consider, how are you holding space for clients and their emotions and the full range of what people come to coaching for. So if you're familiar with emotions and coaching, you're going to love it. If you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm very confident to coach emotions, you're going to love it. And if you're a place of like, I don't really see the place for emotions in coaching, you're also going to love it because there's something for everybody. So come save your space at igcompany.co.uk emotions/emotions24. That's igcompany.co.uk/emotions24.